So today we're going to talk about a really old idea that can help us understand a very modern problem. Why do the same things keep happening to us over and over again? This is all about the second Hermetic principle, the principle of correspondence. Let's get into it. Have you ever had that feeling, like you're stuck in a loop? It could be a certain kind of problem that always seems to find you at work. Or maybe it's a dynamic in your relationships that just keeps repeating. It's like you're reading the same script, just with different actors. Well, you're definitely not imagining it. It's a super common human experience to see these old issues pop up again, just wearing a new disguise. But what if it isn't just bad luck? What if there's a kind of blueprint underneath it all? A pattern that's connecting all these different events? And this is where the principle of correspondence can be really useful. It comes from a text from the early 20th century called the Kybalion, and it basically says that there's a consistent harmony between all the different levels of our reality. The best way to think of it is as a mental model for seeing how patterns repeat on every scale of our lives. The whole idea is captured in this one famous line, as above, so below, as below, so above. What does that really mean? Well, in the simplest terms, it suggests that the patterns of the huge, massive universe are mirrored in us as tiny individuals, and the other way around. The same rules that shape galaxies are reflected in the rules that shape our own inner worlds. A really cool way to see this in action is to look at fractals. A fractal is just a pattern that looks the same no matter how much you zoom in or out. Think of a fern leaf. A tiny piece of it looks just like the entire leaf. That's a perfect picture of correspondence. It's the same basic design repeating everywhere, from the gigantic to the microscopic. Okay, so how do we make this useful for us right now? We can basically translate this big, universal idea into something very personal. The above becomes our inner world, our thoughts, our beliefs, our feelings, and the below becomes our outer world, our job, our relationships, the results we get. This principle is saying that these two worlds are basically reflections of each other. And what's so fascinating is that modern psychology actually backs this up. In cognitive science, they talk about something called schemas. These are the mental maps we create based on everything we've experienced. And these maps literally control how we see everything. Our brains are even built to look for proof that our maps are right. It's called confirmation bias. So we're not seeing reality as it is, we're seeing it through the filter of our own internal map. If that map is filled with anxiety, well, that's the world we're going to see. Now, this next part is maybe the most important thing to hear. This idea is a tool for responsibility, not a reason for blame. It is not about saying you are at fault for every single bad thing that happens in your life. It's about realizing that you have complete and total authority over how you respond to what happens. That's where your power is. So let's be crystal clear about what this is not. It's not magic or superstition. It is absolutely not an excuse to blame people for the tough situations they're in, and it's not some trick to control other people. It's simply a framework for taking ownership of the one thing you actually can control, the architecture of your own mind. All right, theory's great, but let's make this real. Here are 3 simple, everyday examples of how our inner world can show up in our outer world. First up, work. Ever notice that when you're feeling super stressed out and chaotic on the inside, you're way more likely to make a silly mistake? Like you send an email to the wrong person, or you just can't get your words right in a meeting. That's your inner chaos showing up as outer mistakes. But when you're feeling calm and focused inside, your work tends to be clear and effective. As within, so without. Okay, next, let's look at relationships. Now, this doesn't mean you can control what other people do, but the energy you walk into a room with, it really does set the tone. If your internal state is one of self-respect and warmth, you project that. If it's defensive, you project that too. And people, often without even realizing it, tend to mirror that energy right back at you. If you want a different dynamic, the most powerful place to start is with the feeling you're bringing to the table. And last, habits. The science of habits is fascinating. It tells us that every single habit is driven by a craving. But what is a craving, really? It's an internal need to change your internal state. See, you don't actually crave the cookie. You crave the feeling of comfort that the cookie gives you. That inner feeling is the engine driving the whole external habit loop. The outer action is just a reflection of an inner need. So how can you actually start playing with this idea today? I want to give you a really simple, practical exercise. We'll call it the correspondence scan. It's just 3 little steps. First, just pick one frustrating pattern that keeps showing up in your life. It can be something small. Second, just gently ask yourself, what internal feeling or belief might this outer pattern be mirroring? And the third step is the most important. Just observe. Don't judge yourself. Don't try to fix it right away. Just see the connection.
Because the real magic here isn't about forcing yourself to change overnight. The power is in the awareness itself. Just seeing the link between an inner feeling and an outer pattern. That is a huge step. You can't redesign a blueprint if you don't even know you're looking at one. Seeing the pattern clearly is the first step to changing it.
And that really brings us to the core of this whole thing. The principle of correspondence shows us where our true leverage is. Instead of getting exhausted fighting all the external stuff, we can go right to the source. When we start to shift that internal blueprint, we begin to create a totally different external reality. So I'll just leave you with this question to think about. After everything we've talked about, what's one small, repeating pattern in your own life that you'll choose to just observe today? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. The awareness that you start to build with this principle is going to be the perfect foundation for what we talk about next, which is the principle of vibration. You can find the full playlist right here to continue on with the series.